Ladies and gentlemen, here to perform the national anthem, please welcome Peabody Veterans Memorial High School Chorale, led by Mr. John L. Simmons, Director. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Father Kevin Lever from St. John's the Baptist Church, who will give our invocation.
O God, the source of every good gift, you have called these young people to serve the common good by their interest in government. As we gather this day with them, we ask you to bless and honor them as they bless and honor you with their lives and with their service. Equip them with wisdom that comes from above, patience in serving, strength and energy for their tasks, humility in their leading, sensitivity to the needs of others, and the courage to take responsibility. Bless their work to the end that your name might be glorified through them in their school and throughout our city. We thank you for the dedication of these students, and we honor them for their service to our community, and we commend them today for their generous response to be leaders who find joy in serving others. May they work together in harmony for the common good. May they listen to one another in a spirit of genuine respect. May they encourage and reverence one another's unique talents. May they use the gifts you have given them in creative styles of leadership. May they approach decision-making through discernment and prayer, and may they respond effectively to the needs of the students in their care. We ask this in the name of the one who came not to be served, but to serve, Jesus Christ, who is our Lord forever and ever. Amen.
We're now going to enjoy a musical selection, once again, the Peabody Veterans Memorial High School Chorale, led by Mr. John Simmons.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Edward Moise, and this is Peabody High's Chorale. The selection that we will be singing for you tonight is an African-American spiritual called I Got Shoes, which is about enjoying the privileges in life that one often takes for granted in this life and the next.
How about another nice hand for the Peabody High School Chorale and John Simmons. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chris Ryder, and on behalf of Mayor Ted Betancourt, welcome to City Hall and to Student Government Day 2019. Mayor Betancourt is unable to be here tonight because of a family commitment. This is one of his favorite events of the year, however, and he asked me to send his regrets. He's fond of telling Student Government Day participants that he himself took part in Student Government Day when he was a student at Peabody Veterans Memorial High School. He was the Director of Parks and Recreation. All our student counterparts tonight deserve great credit for being here. They were each elected by their peers and have learned a great deal about city government today. They're great credit to their families and a great credit to their community. So if you'll please join me in a round of applause for the students. And if you'll join me in welcoming the Superintendent of Schools, Miss Kara Murtaugh. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. Good evening, everyone. And I want to thank all the families for being here to support our students and to support all of us that work in the city and in the schools. I was so impressed with how you conducted yourself today and always. I'm very honored and pleased to be your superintendent of schools. We will have more fun tonight, but I hope you enjoyed your day today with your counterparts and continue to enjoy the night. Thank you.
Please welcome Student Government Day Advisor, Mr. Ken McHugh.
Thank you. I'd like to start off by thanking a number of people, especially Mary Bellavance in the mayor's office, for doing a lot of work and putting a lot of things together today. City officials for being here, families for attending tonight, and of course the students for running for the many positions that we had on the ballot. This is a long event throughout the year. We started this back in the fall with an assembly where the students were informed about Student Government Day and what all the opportunities were. They were given an opportunity to look at approximately 70 positions. Then we ended up having about 200 students that declared for these 70 positions. We had an election in December, and that resulted in the students that you see here tonight. Today, they met, earlier in the year, they met their counterparts, and then they spent the morning with them today and shadowed them throughout the city and got to see all the great things that happen and how everything works together. Tonight, you're going to have the showcase of the school committee and the city council meetings. And the students have worked hard over the last 2 months on creating motions they will propose and debate tonight, and other students would be called forward, requested to come up to the podium and give their testimony on the different ideas that they're coming up with for the 2 meetings tonight. Just a quick little history, Student Government Day. This began in 1973. There was 5 students. It has grown, as you see, to the size that we have today, and this is a long-standing tradition, and we'd like to thank you all for being a part of that.
Chief of Staff Brandon Squibb and I are going to call up each of the students and their counterparts, come right up to the floor, say hello, and have their photo taken. We'll start with Mayor Joe Zito and City Council President John Turco. Administrative Assistant to the Mayor, Mary Bellavance, and Catherine Cohen. Executive Secretary Kathy Trombley and Yasser Kader. City Clerk Tim Spanos and Andrew Langley. City Councilor at Large Ryan Melville and Aaron Kidd. City Councilor at Large David Gravel and Tatiana Carrera. City Councilor at Large Thomas Gould and Claudio Rocha. City Councilor at Large Ann Manning Martin and William Manning. City Councilor at Large Thomas Rosignol and Jack Woods. Ward 1 City Councilor John Turco and Shannon O'Connell. Ward 2 City Councilor Peter McGinn and Sarah Bratt. Ward 3 City Councilor James Mitsoulis and Zachary Stark. Ward 4 City Councilor Ed Charist and Christina Rosignol. Ward 5 City Councilor Joel Saslar and Sidney LeBlanc. Although our Ward 6 City Councilor counterpart Gabrielle Borges couldn't be here tonight, we thank Ward 6 City Councilor Mark O'Neill for being with us tonight. Members of the school committee Brandy Carpenter and Jonalyn Carpenter. School committee member Joseph Amico and Audrey Gabriel. School committee member Andrew Arnodis and Ashley Anise. School Committee Member Jared Hockman and Caitlin Gorman. School Committee Member John Olympio and Andrew L'Italian. Animal Control Officer Sharon McGill and Marlena Winchell. Auditor Mary Martin and Bianca Baldessaro. Chief Assessor Susan Antonellis and Litzy Rodriguez. Brooksby Farm Manager Joanne Roden and Sarah Eanes. Building Inspector Al Talarico and Gabrielle Goldman. Okay. Thank you. You're welcome. Business Liaison Deb McGregor and Alyssa Saracini. Our Cemetery Superintendent Dylan Buffard. The Chairman of the Municipal Light Commission, Tom Paris, and Aaron Corrigan. The Chemist and Water Supervisor, Davis Scribner, and Leah May Hubis. The City Collector, Chris Morphus and Amanda McKenzie. The City Director of Engineering, Bob Langley and Jennifer DiGiulio. City Solicitor Adam Buckley and Martina Kott. City Treasurer Julie Daigle and Catherine Manning. Director of Community Development, Kurt Bellavance and John Paulo Miranda. Director of Human Services, Sharon Cameron and Vanessa Maturano. Director of Information Technology, Frank Nyan and Dolly Patel. Director of Public Services, Robert Labossiere and Neil Sherman. Director of Parks, Recreation, and Forestry, Jennifer Davis and Megan Ailes. Electrical Inspector Sean Mahoney and Alexandra Barrett. Executive Director of the Council on Aging, Carolyn Wynn and Mackenzie Marmion. Finance Director Mike Gingras and Alex Chow. Healthy Peabody Collaborative Outreach Coordinators Sandy Drover and Annalise Torres. Human Resource Manager Beth Brennan O'Donnell and Sophia Vasconcelos. Library Director Melissa Robinson and Megan Bresnahan. Manager of the Peabody Municipal Light Plant Charles Orfanos and Nicholas Acosta. Public Health Nurse Chassie Robinson, Rachel Gray, Samantha Wallace, and Aiden Kelleher. Purchasing Agent Mike Gingras and Aiden Kelleher. Superintendent of Parks and Forestry Brian Grant and Lily Hart. Veteran Service Director Steve Patton and Tiana Daw. Superintendent of Schools Kara Murtaugh and Alex Holden. Administrative Assistant to the Superintendent Marge Marcarelli and Victoria Lombardi. Assistant Superintendent of Schools Christopher Lord and Elizabeth Curcio. Assistant to the Superintendent, Human Resources, Stephen Farrell and Sophia Burnett. Administrator of Special Education Kara Murtaugh and Lillian Brennan. School Business Manager Tom LaFleur and James Nguyen Huang. High School Principal Judy Maniatis and Lindsay Clements. Assistant High School Principal Judy Maniatis and Emily Simon. School Resource Officer Manny Costa and Kayla Littlefield. Chief of Police Thomas Griffin and Angie Hogue. Chief of Detectives, Chief Thomas Griffin and Mike Tansey. Secretary to Police Chief Sharon McGill and Allison Dusnap. Chief of the Fire Department Stephen Pasden and Josh Tanzer. Fire Inspector Chris Dowling and Caleb Dolan. Executive Director of the Peabody Chamber of Commerce, Deb McGregor, and Evan Murphy. Chief of Staff Chris Ryder and Brandon Squibb. Once again, a nice round of applause for not only the student counterparts, but our city counterparts. Thank you. We'll have a brief recess and get ready for the school committee meeting. Folks, if we could have the school committee members and their counterparts come on up and take a seat right up here at the tables. School committee and their counterparts. Thank you.
I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Peabody School Committee.
We need the gavel.
Yeah. Turn that off.
I need to say it one more time.
I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Peabody School Committee. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Peabody School Committee. I'd like to open the discussion on the first motion.
Is that where it is?
Through the chair, my motion is that Peabody Veterans Memorial High
Press 1 for on.
that Peabody Veterans Memorial High School will implement a mental health curriculum in freshman year seminar classes. It will go over signs, symptoms, and warning signs of multiple mental illnesses, how to help yourself, how to help a friend, resources that you can go to, resources that the school provides, everything that our health center has to offer, ways to manage stress and anxiety, and cognitive behavioral therapy techniques.
Would any school committee members like to discuss the motion?
I second it.
The superintendent has something to say.
I support the motion with some suggestions. I think the first year seminar teachers should be provided with some training on what to talk about and how to talk about it with the students. And I encourage the teachers to utilize our health center and get the clinicians involved and come into the class to support the education.
Through the chair, I think that's a great idea because it's great that Peabody High is one of the only schools in this area that has a health center, so we should definitely use that to our advantage to get the teachers knowledgeable to this subject because so many students in Peabody High are probably struggling, so right off the bat, freshman year, get the teachers recognized with this subject so that they can teach the students.
School committee, Gabriel.
Through the chair, would this correspond with the signs of suicide prevention trainings that have been going on throughout the 4 years, and does that tie into the curriculum, or is this separate from that?
So the Signs of Suicide Prevention program, I was actually a part of that, and I think that's a great idea. It's how I got my idea from this also, and that was almost hard because the seniors had to take time out of their AP and honors classes to go into freshman bio classes, and it was also taking time out of the freshman bio class. So, and that was only for one 45-minute period. We can't stress how important this is in just one 45-minute period. We need to have the freshman seminar classes have about a 2-week span where we put all this information onto them. That way it won't waste the time of the seniors and it won't waste the time out of the freshman bio classes. It will just be in their freshman seminar class where they're just studying anyways, so we can make it useful.
Any further discussion on the motion?
We've discussed that, and we stand for that and implementing more adjustment counselors into the freshman seminar programs, as well with the health teachers too.
I would like to call the Health and Human Service Director to the stand for her input.
testifying. All right. I firmly believe that mental health is a very pressing issue, especially in people that are my age. So at Peabody High alone, in addition to the various students who utilize the health center, about 10 students a week visit the nurse due to behavioral health issues, and around 40 more visit for unspecified reasons that are most likely due to behavioral health reasons. So, the National Council for Behavioral Health has initiated a program titled Mental First Aid. This program teaches the skills needed to identify, understand, and respond to signs of mental health and substance abuse challenges and crises. Their goal is to make mental health first aid as common as CPR. So, implementing this training into the health class curriculum, or freshman seminars, as you were saying, would be extremely beneficial to all. Even if you personally don't struggle with mental health issues, you probably know someone who does. You being educated in mental first aid could help them more than you could imagine. So, I recommend implementing that in the program.
Thanks, Vanessa. I agree with everything you said.
School committee member L'Italian.
Through the chair, I want to ask if or how much professional development will be needed to add this to the curriculum.
I honestly don't know, but I feel like that all the teachers that are teaching the freshman seminar classes should definitely get educated on this subject through the health center and our adjustment counselors. That might take 2 or 3 classes. We should just see how it goes, about an hour class after school, because the freshman seminar teachers already have to meet and come up with a curriculum, so we might as well implement this in with their training.
The superintendent would like to say something.
We will do a Google survey form on how many hours each teacher thinks that they should be provided with for the training.
On the motion by school committee member Gorman, seconded by school committee member Carpenter, roll call vote. Start. Member Gabriel?
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Ms. Anisi?
Yes.
Ms. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. L'Italian?
Yes.
Motion carries.
The next motion is by school committee member Anisi and school committee member Carpenter.
I propose that the motion, parents are not allowed to enter student parking lot to drop off or pick up students. Teacher's lot will be used since there's already a drop-off system in place. I second that.
Any discussion on the motion? School committee member L'Italian.
Through the chair, I'd like to ask, what is the drop-off system that's already in place?
Around the teacher parking lot, there's already in the morning, the parents can come around and drop off their students, and the students aren't allowed to go up that way. Only the parents.
If you don't mind, could I ask the school resource officer to report to the podium? Can you describe the current situation?
When they come up the skating rink side, go up the gate, then they turn around. come up onto the first entranceway. And then they go just out back towards Lowell Street. Is that it? That's it.
School committee member Anisi?
So right now, obviously, that's the system she said, but also the parents coming from the other side of Peabody go up the student hill into the student parking lot, down the first row, and make their own little drop-off situation. They come around, drop their kids off. Yeah, or some of them also go up the ramp hill, almost running people over. So it's very unsafe and inconvenient.
Any further discussion on the motion?
Should I let her go first?
Through the chair, would this be mandated by a school resource officer or one of the security guards? How would this be implemented and watched over?
School committee member Carpenter?
Yeah, so that's how we were going to implement it, since we have 3 security guards. One is on the teacher's side parking lot, so we wanted another one on the student side because it's only fair. And right now, the drop-off system, they do not listen. So if we just make this a ruling, it's not going to go anywhere. So we just need someone on that side to mandate it.
Assistant Principal Simon?
Upon careful consideration and discussion with numerous staff members, such as Steph Dowling in the office, we agree with Mrs. Anisi, and it's in the best interest of our students to follow that procedure because it will ensure the safety of our students. It will keep the non-driving students on one side with the pickup and drop off, and it will keep the students who are newer to driving and less experienced on a different side. And the safety of our students is our first priority, so keeping them separate is definitely important.
On the motion by school committee member Carpenter and school committee member Neese, roll call vote.
Ms. Anisi,
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter,
Yes.
Ms. Gabriel,
Yes.
Ms. Gorman,
Yes.
Mr. L'Italian,
No.
motion carries.
The next motion is by school committee member Gabriel and school committee member L'Italian.
Okay. We propose to implement a professional-styled reading and writing curriculum within the general sciences in CP1 and honors level that will incorporate the practice of writing and maintaining a thorough lab book, as well as reading published science articles of appropriate academically challenging material beginning freshman year through senior year in order to prepare students for a future in STEM careers. That curriculum includes the lab book, but it is not limited to that, and I actually have a rubric for you all to look at that would kind of go over the outlines of some of that, so if you guys wanted to take a look.
Can I get a motion to receive?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. School committee member Anisi.
Through the chair, Audrey, how, or either one, how would that be implemented in the current curriculum? How would it fit in with the stuff they already have to learn?
Okay. So in the general sciences program, biology, chemistry, and physics, not including any of the elective sciences, it is common practice to be doing labs to supplement the material that you learn throughout the year. And while this is not a practice that has been decided upon by the entire science department, certain teachers have taken upon themselves to start implementing this lab book that follows the included rubric and guidelines, often adjusted to the teacher's discretion, but it's maintained for every experiment done. So this would be kind of something that you follow throughout the school year and maintain in a professional style, so that you learn these skills in the same way that you might do so in other classes.
Assistant Superintendent Curcio.
I like the idea of having more, almost like a self-learning approach and going more in depth with the material, but I also think it will be difficult for the underclassmen and for the lower level science classes to go this in depth. And I think that if they don't have an interest in it, it will just turn them away from STEM careers even more. And I think if they have an interest in it, that's why they take the AP courses and that's why they pursue it more in college, to go more in depth into like the scholarly articles and lab notebooks and stuff.
So through the chair, as someone currently a senior in AP Physics right now, this is the first year that it has been implemented in any class that I've taken to maintain a lab book. And while this is something that's a common practice for other courses, like say in English you learn to MLA format, you learn proper citations in the same way that you need to be prepared in order to write a proper English paper for college level material. This should also be a common practice as the STEM field continues to grow. As these careers begin to open up, it would be doing our students a disservice if they're unprepared to handle the academically challenging material ahead. And now this would be adjusted for each of the school levels. Freshman year, you wouldn't be doing the work that an AP course would be doing, obviously. But if, say, they write down the steps to their experiment and describe the conclusions and outcomes, I don't think that's a hard practice, or that's out of question for our freshman students to handle.
School Committee Member Gorman.
Through the chair, there's already so much information we have to fit in throughout the year. Would you need to push out other things in order to implement this, or would you have to speed the class up? How would you try to fit in all of that?
Right, so this would be just alongside the activities that general science classes go through. The same way that you have handouts for a lab that you would do in chemistry, instead of having a handout where you fill it out on the paper itself and follow through, you're doing it in a separate notebook and you record the experiment. That way at the end of the year you can flip back, you're not going through several papers, several packets, but you have a concise book where all the information is stored, all your data tables, all your conclusions. That way, it's the same work but done separately in a formatted style so that you are prepared to do so in upper level science courses.
Assistant Superintendent Curcio.
I think it would be appropriate to hold a smaller subcommittee of teachers to discuss this further. And I think they know more than we do how students learn and how, what kind of teaching styles they prefer, and to see how to possibly work it into the curriculum or if it would not fit into the curriculum.
School Committee Gabriel.
Through the chair, this also fits into the new vision of the graduate principles that we are trying to implement into our high schools. With effective communicator, with these lab practices, you're often working in lab groups, you're working among students and trying to problem solve together. It's also with self-manager, you're maintaining this book yourself in order to prepare yourself for any higher level STEM classes. And perhaps this will turn certain students away, but it only further prepares our STEM students who are interested in those careers for any upper level courses that they want to take, especially in college level. And even if they aren't interested in science, even in liberal arts education, general education courses are required, and you will have to take these courses at some point. It's doing our students a disservice if they only figure this out their senior year through certain teachers.
Assistant Superintendent Curcio.
We would also like to have students on the subcommittee because they know their own learning styles and they know how they learn best. So we think that they should also have a voice in the matter.
School Committee Member L'Italian.
Through the chair, I would like to add that many students have come back to our physics teacher who has already implemented this into his classroom, saying that learning this has actually been very beneficial to them, and they are actually ahead of all the other students who have to learn this once they get to college their freshman year, and that their professors have told them that they're already miles ahead of everyone else. So this can only benefit them.
School Committee Member Carpenter.
I agree with Assistant Superintendent Lydia Curcio's approach to it, doing the teacher subcommittee and the student subcommittee. Since we don't know much about it, I don't know if we have any say in it, so I feel like we should research more into that.
Is that a motion?
No.
School Committee Member Anisi.
I think maybe it'd be better off as an elective to see how many people sign up that would actually want to do that, and or make it implemented in just the higher classes where people know, juniors, seniors, they know they're gonna go into a STEM career. Whereas freshman bio, sophomore chemistry, do you need that for your future? It could be unnecessary or too much.
School Committee Member Gabriel.
Through the chair. In the same way that a STEM student might say this about English, why should we learn all the different MLA, APA, Chicago-style formats, or the different ways to citate a paper or a website now that there are new technologies coming in? We are trying to provide our students a well-rounded education. For them to not know the basics in science, the same way for us not to know the basics in English or math, would not be beneficial to them in the long run. Whether or not they're going into a STEM future, this practice of continuing and maintaining a lab book would allow them to practice their skills in self-managing, in doing group work together, and writing down all the steps, being concise and thorough, and only leads them to be more meticulous in their work. This should be something implemented in all classes and not specific classes, in the same way that we don't only teach AP Lang students or AP Literature students how to properly cite articles on English papers.
Assistant Superintendent Curcio.
This is clearly an subject that has high interest, and we will have more information at the next school committee meeting.
I'd like to follow the recommendation of the Assistant Superintendent. Can we get a subcommittee? A motion. Can I get a motion from the floor to move this to subcommittee?
Oh, I'd like to make the motion. In subcommittee, to put this in subcommittee.
I second that.
On the motion by School Committee Carpenter, seconded by School Committee Member Anisi.
Through the chair, there's already a motion on the floor, and that needs to be voted on first.
My apologies, that was very long-winded. Can you remind me what the motion was?
The motion was to implement a professional-styled reading and writing curriculum within the general sciences. And I may add that we only want to provide students with an education for jobs that they haven't even been, introduced to yet. This is only preparing them for their futures and tying in with the vision of the graduate.
On the motion by Ms. Gabriel and school committee member L'Italian, can we get a roll call vote?
Ms. Anisi,
No.
Ms. Carpenter,
No.
Ms. Gabriel,
Yes.
Ms. Gorman,
No.
Mr. L'Italian.
Yes.
Motion fails.
Can we get that poster back up? The superintendent has something to say about the poster.
We just want to point out that the poster was made today during Student Government Day at the Higgins Middle School print shop. So thank you to everyone that helped at the Higgins.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I second that.
Move to close school committee.
Second that.
On the motion, all opposed?
All in favor?
All in favor and opposed?
It's a vote.
It's a vote.
Yeah, I did.
If members of the City Council and their counterparts could take their seats, we'll begin in a minute. Members of the City Council and their counterparts. Thank you.
Press the button.
Members of the City Council and counterparts, please take your seats. City Council and counterparts, please take your seats. Thank you.
I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Peabody City Council.
Then read this.
This meeting is being televised live on cable channel 9 and is being taped by Peabody Access TV. It is also being recorded by our City Council stenographer. Counselor Kidd.
I would like to make a motion. We propose to create an additional space for the females that participate of the McVan O'Keefe Ice Skating Rink. Under Title IX, no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied of the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any educational program or activity, receive federal financial assistance. Females at the McVan O'Keefe Ice Rink of the premise of the PVMHS does not contain an adequate amount of space and accommodations. The girls' locker room does not contain lockers. They are just small hooks on the wall for clothing and sports bags. There are also no showers for the girls. The doors connected the showers to the girls' and the boys' locker room is locked to keep the girls and boys separated. Also, the girls' locker room and bathrooms are separated, unlike the boys, so the girls would have to bring their private items into the main ice skating rink. The boys have all of the amenities to accommodate their needs. Women and girls should be granted the same accommodations as boys. Thank you.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Counselor LeBlanc.
Do you know who owns the rink?
Counselor Kidd.
It's owned by DCR. But the city of Peabody has a lease and we're responsible for keeping it to code.
Counselor LeBlanc.
We agree with the motion that it needs to happen, but should the city, should the state pay for it or should we pay for it?
Counselor Manning.
Sorry. We would like to call up the city finance advisor.
Would the city finance advisor please come up?
All right, so we originally estimated the expansion, the locker room for the ice rink to be around $700,000. And we had the father of a hockey player that works for a budgeting firm. He did the conceptual budget for free for us. And he told us the price of it would be $2,048,800. The ice rink is currently operating, hopefully at, we hope it breaks even every year. The locker room would not generate any revenue, additional revenue. And currently we realize it's a good idea, but the finances are simply not there given the current budget.
Counselor Rossignol.
Have you ever thought of switching the boys and girls locker rooms before adding more space into the rink to get more space?
I mean, this isn't my motion.
To the motion, sorry. To Counselor Kidd. If the girls tend to need more space, they should have the boys' locker room if they don't need more space, instead of spending all this money to add new space into this ice rink.
Counselor Kidd.
It's not that girls take up more space, it's that it's not up to Title IX code because we are not receiving the equal privileges of having our own locker room and having our own lockers and having our own bathroom.
Counselor Rocha.
Even though this might cost a lot of money to build a new, for the girls' locker room, it still falls under Title IX, and Peabody could get into lots more trouble than just money for disobeying the Article Title IX.
Counselor Correa.
Are there other sources of revenue, of funds that we can use from like the state side or something?
I mean, given our current budget, I don't see how a locker room costing over $2 million will. I mean, I realize that you guys are under the motion saying that it's under Title IX, but I mean, as a financial director, I'm not gonna go into the legality of that, but it's just not feasible at this moment.
Counselor Rossignol.
To Ms. Kidd on the motion. Since the boys have had it, the locker room, the better locker room for all this time, what is the difficulty of switching the locker rooms now? I do support your motion, but I just don't know why they can't switch.
Counselor Kidd.
Because though switching it, the boys would then be removed of their privileges to the bathrooms and to the lockers to keep their belongings not only safe, but to keep their privacy intact. So moving them would remove the boys' privacy. Though it's giving the girls the privacy, it's still taking it away from the males of the ice rink.
Counselor Manning.
This is a law, so it should not matter about the cost. We should just get it done.
I'd like to ask the mayor to approach the podium. Does anyone have any questions for the mayor? Counselor LeBlanc.
Have you given any thought as to how we could fund a new girls' locker room?
I have given it thought, and our budget is pretty tight because there's a lot of funding going on, but we'll keep looking into it.
Counselor Correa.
Can't we issue a bond for this?
I mean, we could do that, but we'd much rather pressure the state legislature into funding this.
Are there any further questions for the mayor? Counselor Woods.
So the rink is actually an MDC rink, which means that the government actually owns half of it. So could we petition for them to pay for half of that price? Correction, the state.
That's exactly my idea. I would like the state to pay for half, and the city will fund the rest.
There's a motion on the floor, roll call vote.
Counselor Stark,
No.
Counselor Kidd,
Yes.
Counselor Bratt,
No.
Counselor Woods,
Yes.
Counselor Manning,
Yes.
Counselor LeBlanc,
Yes.
Counselor Rosignol,
Yes.
Counselor Rocha,
Yes.
Counselor Correa,
Yes.
Counselor O'Connell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
The next motion on the floor by Councillor Woods and Councillor Rosignol.
Crystal Lake has been renovated to become a fun and interactive place for citizens of Peabody to go and enjoy their summers and time outside for the fresh air. We would like to motion to add the rentals of kayaks, canoes, and paddle boats on the lake from May 1st through September 1st. And we would also like to make this a year-round thing, so we would like to open this up to the winter and have ice skating, and we will be renting ice skates from December 1st until March 1st.
I would like to recognize the mayor. Are there any questions for the mayor? Councillor Stark.
I know that most of the restoration of Crystal Lake was done on a grant from the state. My concern is that in order to add these new utilities, it would cost taxpayer revenue, and I don't necessarily think that the citizens of Ward 3, the residents of Ward 3, would necessarily agree with potentially higher taxes for the purpose of adding utilities way over in West Peabody. So my question is, will this be based off of an expanded grant from the state, or would we be increasing taxation or any other forms of revenue in order to get this done?
We were hoping to have this privately funded by companies like Treadwell's Ice Cream and Gravic Associates.
That's why you're the mayor.
Councillor Bratt.
Do you think that there would be enough foot traffic or interest in these activities that would be worth the expansion?
Most certainly, there's 54,000 people in the city of Peabody.
Councillor Woods.
To second that, I would just like to say that not everybody has the ability to travel to places up in Maine and New Hampshire for renting houses, or that they own houses. So I think that people who are more locally interested in activities would be able to get it at a more inexpensive price, and it would also bring more revenue to the city.
Councillor Manning.
What are the city's liabilities if someone were to fall through the ice or someone falls in the water? Just the liabilities of that.
I'd like to call the Director of Parks and Recreation.
So we are covered by the Massachusetts recreational statute, just as long as we're not charging fees.
Counselor Rossignol.
I would also like to say that this is successful in many other cities around the area, so I think it would be successful here. Also, for insurance and other liabilities, they would need to, if you're under 18, you need a parent to sign a waiver to make sure you can go kayaking just in case something happens like that.
Counselor Rocha.
Do you know what the environmental impact would be if there was any on Crystal Lake?
So these are non-motorized sports, so I don't really think there would be any environmental impact, but we can definitely check on that.
Counselor Correa.
Are there any grants that the Recreation can provide or from the Committee of Preservation Funds?
We can definitely apply for some grants, and there are... And also Dick's Sporting Goods would be willing to help us out with that.
Counselor Kidd.
What would be the cost of the kayaks or other utilities being utilized by the city?
So for one set of a kayak, a life vest, and a paddle, it would cost $310, and for 6 sets, it would be about $2,000. For a stand-up paddleboard, a life vest, and a paddle set, one set would cost $600, and for 6 stand-up paddleboard sets, it would cost around $3,600.
Counselor Stark.
Where would staffing for operating these recreational activities be provided from? Would it be from the Department of Parks and Recreation? And would that staffing be annual? Because if people need to come down to Crystal Lake to rent these kayaks or whatever, somebody needs to be there in order to ensure that the rentals or the process goes smoothly. So I'm just curious as to where that staff comes from and where their salary comes from.
So it would most likely be either contracted services or we would hire part-time employees.
Counselor Rossignol.
We would also like to open it up to Peabody High School students that need volunteer hours. Everybody needs them to graduate, 40 hours to graduate. So in the summertime, they can come down and help put the kayaks back into the shed or back into wherever they came from, and also help working at this for community service hours.
I recognize Ms. Ailes.
We would also be willing to work on a program for that.
Any further discussion on the motion? Roll call vote.
Counselor Stark?
No.
Counselor Kidd?
Yes.
Counselor Bratt?
Yes.
Counselor Woods?
Yes.
Counselor Manning?
No.
Counselor LeBlanc?
No.
Counselor Rossignol?
Yes.
Counselor Rocha?
Yes.
Counselor Correa?
Yes.
Counselor O'Connell?
Yes.
Motion carries.
The next motion is by Counselor Borges and myself, and I will be reading the motion. Plastic bags are often used in retail, but they have a harmful effect on the environment. Worldwide, almost 1 trillion plastic bags are used each year, and they never break down. The plastic bags can end up harming animals when they end up floating away into places like the ocean. Animals do not realize that they are not edible and they could end up dying if they consume or get stuck in the plastic. Our motion would ban the usage of plastic bags in retail for those reasons. So all businesses in Peabody would be required to stop giving plastic bags to their customers once they finish up with their final supply. This would cause customers to buy reusable bags, which are much better for the environment because of the materials they are made of and the fact that they have limited uses. In some communities, retail businesses have started selling paper bags, which are recyclable for a small price for customers who do not have reusable bags. This could be a good idea because it creates more income, but still no non-biodegradable products are being used. There would be a fine for businesses who are still using plastic bags once the motion passes. I'll open this up to the council. Councillor Kidd.
I completely support this motion. I think that plastic bags are very toxic for the environment, and stores like Market Basket actually provide paper bags for free, so that also helps.
Councillor Bratt.
I also agree with this motion. I've been around Salem for many times for shopping, and it's been highly successful the way they're doing it.
Councillor Stark.
I support this motion on environmental grounds, but I'm just curious as to what sort of incentives or programs would be created in order to encourage businesses to come on board with this program without, trying to pressure them into coming on board with the program through the law specifically.
I'd like to call on the Health and Human Resources Director. Human Services Director. Could you answer the question by Councillor Stark?
Could you repeat the question?
So I support the motion on environmental grounds, but my concern is with businesses that use plastic bags currently. It will probably cost them a certain amount of money to make a transition. And I'm just curious as to whether or not the city will be providing some sort of an incentive, whether financial or however it may be provided, in order to encourage businesses to sign on board with the program without using the law directly.
So, if the ban were to go into effect, we would give businesses sufficient time, possibly 6 months, to use up their plastic inventory that they already have. And if customers wanted to use plastic bags, then perhaps like the rates would go up and they'd have to pay more money for plastic bags instead of paper.
Councillor LeBlanc.
To the motion, are we overstepping boundaries with the government by forcing businesses to switch to this? Is it more of a government issue rather than us telling businesses how to run their business?
That may be a question for the business liaison.
At this time, we can only encourage the businesses to do it themselves out of goodwill, but there's no force towards it. It's just that other towns have been doing it and it's been very successful, so we encourage it as well.
Councillor Rocha.
If a business doesn't have the availability to paper bags, will the city be able to fund them by giving to them, or will they find them right away?
The city would give them like a transitional time of about like 6 months to transition to it, so the burden won't be on them and we'd be access for them.
I have a question for the Public Service Director. Do you think this is really an issue in the city concerning recycling?
I mean, 100%. As far as plastic bags are concerned, we actually find tons and tons and tons of them along the sides of the road, all across the city. We actually have certain organizations and groups that volunteer to help out with it. JRM is actually sponsoring an initiative to help clean up parts of the city, and we also have the Green Initiative among the city. But the big problem would, of course, be the money issue, which we can't really testify about. But I do have to say that Public Services would sponsor this initiative 100%.
Are there any questions for the Public Service Director? Councillor Woods?
So I have a question on the motion. The elderly in the city are on a fixed income already, paying for things like food and medicine, and the plastic bags, it says that it would cause them to buy the reusable bags, so I was just wondering if you would think that it'd be too excessive to have them buy these bags.
Who's the question to?
On the motion.
I think the cost could be minimal since the bags are reusable. Councillor Rossignol?
To the motion, I was just wondering how you know that this is successful in other places already.
It is currently implemented by almost 100 cities, and the state is working on a bill for a statewide ban. Councillor LeBlanc.
I have a question for the Health and Human Services Director. If we pass this motion, how will this be enforced? Like, will there be a fine, or will there be other ways in order to ensure that businesses follow this protocol?
So as far as enforcement, through the Health and Human Services Department, we do inspections annually or more than once a year. And so the enforcement would be in conjunction with the food inspection and the retail store inspection. As far as fines, we don't really know the logistics of it yet, but they would definitely be punished if they didn't follow the mandated rules.
Councillor Stark.
I have a question for the Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce, if they could testify. I know that they're on the list here. We're obviously concerned about businesses within the Chamber of Commerce and how that they feel about something like this, specifically if they provide any sort of grocery bags, plastic or paper already. So if you could just testify on behalf of those businesses and tell us how they feel about something like this.
Of course. While the cost of the transition from plastic to paper bags may be negligible for large companies in Peabody, of which there are few, the small businesses would see a heavy impact from this additional expense, as paper bags are much more expensive than plastic. I would like to recommend a fine based on sales for using plastic rather than banning it. This would allow businesses to decide what would be most beneficial for them. And while the environment is obviously important to maintain, and it is clear businesses agree, as many have already made the switch to paper on their own accord. Our priorities lie in our businesses, and I believe this motion would prove detrimental to the small businesses of Peabody. However, a survey of the members of the Chamber of Commerce would grant us a great deal of insight to the opinions of the businesses themselves.
Councillor Manning.
Instead of using the paper products, what if we just use reusable plastic bags?
Great question. Councillor Stark.
Depending on the results of this motion, I suggest that the City Council moves to survey the Chamber of Commerce before taking any further action. I agree with the Chamber of Commerce director in that it is important to recognize small businesses across the city and the impact that this might have on them, and to let them have a voice. And I don't think that we've been doing that up to this point. We seem to be taking legislative action without representing our constituents fairly, which is why I move to survey the Chamber of Commerce before taking any further action on this motion.
On the amendment to the motion, I'd like to take a roll call vote.
Counselor Stark?
Yes.
Counselor Kidd?
No.
Counselor Bratt?
No.
Counselor Woods?
Yes.
Counselor Manning?
Yes.
Counselor LeBlanc?
Yes.
Counselor Rossignol?
No.
Counselor Rocha?
Yes.
Counselor Correa?
No.
Counselor O'Connell?
No.
The amendment fails, 5 to 5.
I'd like to refer to the original motion for a roll call vote.
Counselor Stark?
No.
Counselor Kidd?
Yes.
Counselor Bratt?
Yes.
Counselor Woods?
No.
Counselor Manning?
No.
Counselor LeBlanc?
Yes.
Counselor Rossignol?
Yes.
Counselor Rocha?
Yes.
Counselor Correa?
Yes.
Counselor O'Connell?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, we would like to discuss the motion by Councillor Bratt.
This motion is to add a no parking sign to the odd-numbered side of Air Street.
Any discussion on the motion? Councillor LeBlanc.
Why?
Councillor Bratt.
Right now, the street is a huge public safety issue with the amount of cars that line up on both sides of the street. There have been many near collisions up at the top of the street because of this. I almost got in one the other day. And there have been times where people have had to reverse all the way back down the street because two cars weren't able to get through at the same time.
Councillor Rossignol.
Could you just explain where this is again? I don't know where that is.
Okay, so it's off of Washington Street. Yeah. That's the best I got. Sorry. I'm not.
Councillor LeBlanc.
I'd like to get the opinion of the police chief.
So this street is located right near Washington and Putnam Street. The police would be in favor, as it is a very narrow street, and oftentimes during rush hour for morning and afternoon, drivers do use it as a cut through for Salem and Peabody. And it is also more narrow during the winter due to snow, so it would be in the best interest to restrict parking to just one side of the street.
Councillor Manning.
Where are the residents that are currently residing on that street supposed to park, and will that cause traffic?
So the plan for that would be the residents would have to park on other side streets that are much wider. Or if they have driveways, they could use those.
Councillor Stark.
I'd like to think about cost from a couple perspectives. First off, I'm curious as to how much a no parking sign would cost. Although it may be a negligible amount, it's still important to take into consideration. I'd also like to think about cost, and I'd like to ask about cost regarding displacing people and how they park on the side of the streets. If they are to move, they may block other commercial businesses or create a problem across the rest of the city, which could be financially significant in the long run. So I'm curious as to whether or not the police chief has any opinions on the matter. Thank you.
So we would have to refer to the DPW for the matters of the cost, and technically we aren't really qualified to make decisions on costs like that.
Councillor Rossignol.
To the motion, I was wondering if you knew the opinions of the residents that live on that street toward this.
I do not, but I've had many comments from people who live right around those streets and who live on the streets who have mentioned how difficult it is to travel on that street.
Councillor Rocha.
Even though for the parking sign it might cost some X amount of money, I believe that if it saved at least one life, then I believe we should do it.
I would like to call for the DPW director to come up. Can you give an approximate cost?
An approximate cost for the sign itself?
Yes.
Yes. So a sign for no parking on one side of the street would cost approximately $50 in its entirety.
Councillor LeBlanc.
To Councillor Bratt, do the residents of Air Street know that this motion is being carried out tonight?
I do not believe they do.
Councillor Stark.
I would move that we amend the motion to delay the motion until the residents of Air Street are surveyed on the issue.
On the motion by Councillor Stark, roll call vote.
Counselor Stark?
Yes.
Counselor Kidd?
Yes.
Counselor Bratt?
No.
Counselor Woods?
No.
Counselor Manning?
Yes.
Counselor LeBlanc?
Yes.
Counselor Rossignol?
Yes.
Counselor Rocha?
No.
Counselor Correa?
No.
Counselor O'Connell?
No.
Amendment fails.
On the original motion, roll call vote.
Counselor Stark?
No.
Counselor Kidd?
No.
Counselor Bratt?
Yes.
Counselor Woods?
Yes.
Counselor Manning?
No.
Counselor LeBlanc?
No.
Counselor Rossignol,
No.
Counselor Rocha,
Yes.
Counselor Correa,
Yes.
Counselor O'Connell.
Yes.
Motion fails.
The final motion of the evening will be by Councilor Rocha.
I wish to substitute my motion, my original motion.
Motion's received.
On the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor LeBlanc?
Just like a question to the public. There was another motion. Is that like not happening?
Correct. It was pulled. Councilor Rocha, could you please read the motion?
Yes. The motion is people who own property and are jobless may work off part of their city property tax by doing community service to the city, such as cleaning up the city.
I will open up the discussion to the council. Councilor Stark?
Could I hear from the finance director, please?
I'd like to call the finance director. Councilor Stark?
So I'm curious about a number of things, largely regarding cost. Particularly, I'm curious as to how, if people are working off their tax bill, their property tax bill, through community service, how that revenue, which was originally intended to go to the city, could be substituted, and if there is any room within the city budget, for example, to make room for something like this regarding potential lost tax revenue.
All right, so we have, for abatements, we have about a $500,000 fund for, so that would, outweigh the costs.
Councilor Stark?
Do we know the number of people who would be, and this may also be a question that's open to the mayor, do we know, or the city collector, do we know the number of people who would be eligible for this program? People who owe property tax and do not have jobs, because that's important in weighing the cost. You have to understand, or you have to analyze the number of people who would be eligible for this program and the number of people who would be essentially working off the program and where we would lose money. So my question could be answered by the finance director, the city collector, or the mayor.
I'd like to call the mayor to the podium.
Can you please repeat the question?
Are we aware the number of people who would be eligible for this proposed program? For example, do we have a basic estimate of how many people own property yet are unemployed within the city of Peabody?
I don't have an exact number, but I can imagine it would be many. It wouldn't be many. And the $500,000 mentioned by the finance director would cover the cost.
And that was 500,000? Okay, thank you.
Councillor Kidd.
Would this opportunity be open to everyone that is in debt, and would there be a cap on the amount of money we'd be giving them per year?
After further reviewing your motion, I don't think I can support this as mayor due to the cost of the taxpayer.
Councillor Rocha.
In regard to the motion, we have learned through history that projects like these, including the work progress admission developed by Franklin Delano Roosevelt and during the Great Depression, would not only help end unemployment across America, it would end unemployment in the city, which would help generate revenue in the city. With more people, with more money in people's pockets, they could help circulate the money through Peabody and make Peabody more of a more prominent city as people can see this.
Councillor Manning.
To Councillor Rocha, are there any other opportunities you were thinking of that are more dignifying than picking up trash, like publicly?
There could. Well, through the mayor's office, we would look at other opportunities, and that would more be a question for the Department of Public Works. But if you've Peabody, I'm a runner, so I run through Peabody, and I think one of the most prominent things I see when I run is trash on the sidewalks, such as glass, which I must be aware of when I run because I could easily step in it.
Councillor Stark.
Yes, I'm just wondering if the citizens of Peabody, this is a question for Council Rocha and for the council as a whole, whether or not they know if their constituents agree with the essential transformation of Peabody into a welfare state, philosophically, with the institution of this motion. This is just a question for the floor.
This motion was not proposed to make the city of Peabody a welfare state. It would actually mean the opposite, because we are putting more people to work and generating more money and giving people more jobs with dignity and respect.
Councillor LeBlanc.
I believe it's a good concept, but I think that the motion is too broad. I think we need a definite number on how many people this would be affecting, how many people we're giving money to, and the exact number that, like how much money the city's going to lose because they're not paying this tax money. Like I said, I think it's a good concept, but I think it's just too broad to make a decision on now.
Mayor.
I'd like to make a suggestion to the council that they move this to the subcommittee. Finance committee. Sorry.
Councillor Stark.
I second that motion and propose an amendment. I move that this be turned over to the Finance Subcommittee.
On the motion, roll call vote.
Counselor Stark?
Yes.
Counselor Kidd?
Yes.
Counselor Bratt?
Yes.
Counselor Woods?
Yes.
Counselor Manning?
Yes.
Counselor LeBlanc?
Yes.
Counselor Rossignol?
Yes.
Counselor Rocha?
Yes.
Counselor Correa?
Yes.
Counselor O'Connell?
Yes.
Amendment carries.
We do have one further motion by Councilor Correa and Councilor LeBlanc.
Our motion is that we propose to repair and fill all major potholes in Peabody. Potholes are depressions in the pavement usually caused by erosion. Recent weather has caused many potholes to develop on major roads such as Lowell Street, County Street, and Felton Street by the North Shore Mall. Therefore, for the safety and well-being of citizens, these potholes need to be addressed and fixed.
Councilor Kidd.
I'd like to address Councilor LeBlanc. I'm pretty sure this is already in motion. They're constantly repairing potholes, but it seems that they can't repair them as fast as they're occurring because of erosion and things like the snow that are causing the potholes to come about.
Councilor Bratt.
What would be the cost of this?
I'd like to call on the DPW director.
Could you repeat the question?
What would be the cost of this?
So all in all, we have approximately $50,000 that is used to repair potholes in the city. That's $50,000.
Councilor LeBlanc.
In your opinion, is that enough money to cover the cost?
Well, with potholes, it comes into a lot of different factors. Evidently, in the city of Peabody, potholes are a very large problem, figuratively and literally. Thank you. Overall, the cost approximate to what our citizens are paying in destroyed tires, destroyed wheels, and everything far surpassed the $50,000. Overall, $50,000 is certainly not enough to repair every single pothole in the city. More could be used.
I would just like to say that we think in Ward 1 the DPW director is doing a great job.
Thank you. I second that.
Councilor Rossignol.
To the motion, I would like to ask, which potholes would you know that you would fill in first? Like, how would you decide which has priority over others?
Councilor LeBlanc.
Well, on my daily drive to school, near the school, there is a large patch where it kind of feels like an earthquake in my car when I drive over it every day, that most people swerve to avoid, and it also raises the question of, is it going to cause accidents if people try to swerve to avoid these? Because I'm sure everybody sees all the time when you're driving, you move to the side to avoid driving in it and potentially like having to realign your car, which does cost approximately $100.
Can the DPW director address any of those questions?
Absolutely. So as far as the first question is concerned, speaking of priority upon which pothole to fill in, we actually have a pothole hotline that, believe it or not, we have a pothole hotline that is, so we receive calls when there's a large one in a certain area. And based on the amount of calls and such, that's how we prioritize them. For example, a pothole on Lowell Street or on Linfield Street would probably take top priority over a pothole on like Air Street, for example.
Councillor Woods.
This is a question for the DPW. I would just like to know right now on a monthly basis approximately how many potholes do you fill?
It is certainly a very large amount of potholes. Almost too many to count, to be completely honest with you. But we do have a database that we keep record of, and if you would like the actual information and statistics, we can get that for you at a later date.
Councillor Rocha.
Would this filling of potholes, would it create jobs for any PBD?
Well, it is actually great that you ask that, because our main concern with not being able to fill in all of the potholes is because of manpower. As we do put a certain budget towards filling potholes every year, basically taking the priority after the winter time, of course, then we really could use more people. So it would definitely open up more jobs. If budget presented us, then it would open up more jobs.
Councillor Stark.
I would like to ask Director Sherman what the DPW's budget is annually.
As previously mentioned, Councillor Stark, the DPW's approximate budget per year is about $50,000.
Is that the entire budget?
No, that budget is for pothole servicing only.
And do you know the entire budget?
The entire budget for the year is approximately $24 million, divided upon that, water, basically anything you can think of within the city.
And do you think that is enough money?
Personally, I could never say any amount is enough money, Mr. Stark.
Thank you.
Councillor LeBlanc.
Just to clarify, you said that filling the potholes would not only save people's cars, but also create jobs for others?
Absolutely, yes. Myself included, I've had quite a bit of trouble with potholes, specifically in South Peabody, I will say. But overall, in general, as far as jobs are concerned, absolutely. If we could get the budgetary restrictions raised so we can hire more people, that would absolutely help the effort.
Councillor Correa.
Okay. Is the city responsible for paying the drivers for like their ruined tires on their cars from the potholes? Sorry.
Well, the city does not technically have liability, but it is certainly an area of concern, especially with traffic investigation. If you have a police officer go to the scene, for example, then they will take a look at what goes on, how the street is, what factors played into this, whether or not a car swerved to avoid it, which could also avoid another accident. As far as the potholes themselves are concerned, as long as we address them 24 hours after we're notified of it, then we don't have liability. But if a pothole is known about, not addressed, and then an accident occurs, then we have to accept some responsibility for it.
Councillor Stark.
I'd like to ask a question to Director Sherman and then also quickly to the Finance Director, if that's possible. My question for Director Sherman is if you know whether or not there is already a city initiative underway to fill potholes that are already known of.
So As I mentioned, we do have a call list for it. We prioritize whatever potholes we're notified of. And I encourage all members, of course, to take full acceptance of that. But it will, I lost my train of thought. Could you repeat the question real swift?
Oh, my next question is actually, could I ask a question for the finance director, if we could hear from them?
Can the finance director approach the podium?
My question is, oh, please applause. My question quickly is, if you think there is room in the budget to allocate more money to the Department of Public Services for the purpose of filling potholes to ensure that this could be successful.
So we would not increase the budget. It would be up to the DPW director to kind of allocate his funds of his current budget to the potholes.
Councilor Stark.
For the DPS director, would that be possible? A reallocation of funds for the sole purpose of filling potholes?
The answer is yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Woods.
So this is a question on the motion. As Director Sherman said, that there is already a pothole hotline, and they actually do respond to major potholes already being filled. So my question is, this is for either Councilor LeBlanc or Councilor Carrera, do we feel that this motion is already being carried out?
Councilor LeBlanc, would you like to answer the question?
Yeah. So I think that it is being addressed, but it's not being addressed prominently enough. I think there's still many major potholes that I've seen many times before that, even though there is a hotline, I think that just needed more light to be shed on it.
In the interest of time, I would like to take a roll call vote on the motion.
Counselor Stark?
No.
Counselor Kidd?
No.
Counselor Bratt?
Yes.
Counselor Woods?
No.
Counselor Manning?
Yes.
Counselor LeBlanc?
Yes.
Counselor Rossignol?
No.
Counselor Rocha?
Yes.
Counselor Correa?
Yes.
Counselor O'Connell?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
It's a vote.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have one more portion of our event. Please take your seats. We're going to get the last portion of our ceremony underway. Please take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, before I introduce Mayor Zito, for some closing remarks, I'd like to introduce City Council President John Turco.
Folks, thank you very much. The only thing I wanted to say is twofold. One is thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. It's always an honor for all of us to work with the high school students and the department heads, and I think everybody did a tremendous job. But more importantly, tonight I'd just like to recognize a young lady named Tessa Giamellis that passed away earlier this week in the Giamellis family. And I'd like you all to stand in a moment of silence for Tessa. Thank you all. God bless.
Now please welcome for some closing remarks, Mayor Joe Zito.
I just want to thank everyone who was a part of this today. It was a great day, flew by. Great for the community, real nice time for everyone, and thank you to Tom Gould for the ice cream.
And folks, I'm going to have Mayor Zito read all the names of the student counterparts to come up and get a nice item from the city. Once again, I'd like to thank on behalf of Mayor Betancourt, thank the department heads, the staff, for everything they did to make today possible. One more round of applause for the students. On behalf of Mayor Betancourt, good luck with the rest of your senior year and all the good things that have in your future. Mayor Zito to read the names. Folks, come on up. We're going to draw for 2 scholarships after the students come up. And before you leave tonight, folks, we have some refreshments, dessert-type refreshments at the back. Please grab something on your way out. And thank you to all the parents as well.
Brandon Squibb. Catherine Cohen. Yasser Cater. Andrew Langley. Aaron Kidd. Tatiana Correa. Claudia Rocha. Slowed. Oh, sorry. And please hold all applause to the end. Caught up now? Good. William Manning. Jack Woods. Shannon O'Connell. Sarah Bratt. Zach Stark. Christina Rosignol. Sydney LeBlanc. Jonathan Carpenter. Audrey Gabriel. Ashley Anisi. Caitlin Gorman. Andrew L'Italian. Marlena Winchell. Bianca Baldassaro. Litzy Rodriguez. Sarah Enos. Gabriel Goldman. Alyssa Saracini. Dylan Buffard. Aaron Corrigan. Liam May Hubis. Amanda McKenzie. Jennifer DiGiulio. Martina Cott. Catherine Manning. Gianpaolo Miranda. Vanessa Martirano. Dolly Patel. Neil Sherman. Megan Ailes, Alexandra Barrett, Mackenzie Marmion, Alex Chow, Annalise Torres, Sophia Vasconcelos, Megan Bresnahan, Nicholas Acosta, Rachel Gray, Samantha Wallace, Aiden Kelleher, Lily Hart, Tiana Daw, Alex Holden, Victoria Lombardi, Elizabeth Curcio, Sophia Burnett, Lillian Brennan, James Nguyen Hong, Lindsay Clemens, Emily Simon, Kayla Littlefield, Angie Hogue, Mike Tanzi, Allison Dewsnap, Josh Tanzer, Caleb Dolan, Evan Murphy, Joe Zito,
One last order of business, folks. We're going to do a drawing for, I believe there's 5 total scholarships. There are 3 $200 scholarships generously donated by the city department heads. Mayor Zito will draw the first.
Drum roll, please. Samantha Wallace.
Why doesn't Samantha come up and draw one? Oh, she went home. Oh, she's in here? Okay, go ahead, man. Draw another one.
Annalise Torres.
Caleb Dolan.
The next 2 are 2 $250 scholarships, courtesy of the City Council.
Ashley Anif.
Ashley, go ahead and announce it.
Victoria Lombardi.
Tiana Daw.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Mayor Betancourt, thank you for being here tonight at a very successful Student Government Day. Please have something to eat on the way out. Good night.